Hello, and welcome to the Disability Myth. My name is Dominic, and I live with a fatal disease called spinal muscular atrophy. Together, my amazing caretaker, co-host, and best friend, Uriel, and I plan to debunk misconceptions, share our personal experiences, and shatter your expectations. But we're not stopping there. We're bringing in experts, thought leaders, and everyday people who are smashing through societal barriers, paving the way for a more inclusive world. Whether you're tuning in to learn, empathize, or simply to be entertained, the show promises to be an eye-opening experience that transcends boundaries. Because when it comes down to it, what makes us different is what makes us extraordinary. Well, hello,
Hi.
and happy Hallows Eve from the Disability Myth. I am, of course, your spooktacular host, Dominic Trevathan. Alongside me is the equally spooktacular co-host,
Spooktacular.
Uriel. What's up, man? How you doing on
Hi.
this fine Halloween?
Nothing.
I said, how are you
um.
doing?
Oh, nothing.
Even though we're like recording 3 days ahead of Halloween, it's Halloween
No,
when
the
this
audience doesn't
episode
know
comes
that.
out.
The audience doesn't know that.
No, they gotta know, dude. We gotta break the fourth wall.
No.
Fourth wall's already broken.
Uh,
Too late. You can't go back.
how I'm feeling? I'm all right. It's good. It's a good day.
Nice, dude.
Saturday.
Yeah,
I'm a little sleep deprived, but it's okay.
that's okay. You don't need to sleep.
No.
That's for wussies.
What was ooh. You got creepy pasta shenanigans here. Ooh.
Yeah.
I
So,
hate that face for what is that? Jeff the Killer?
Jeff the Killer, one of the most infamous creepypasta images and stories on the internet. So,
Gosh.
in the spirit of Halloween, we figured we would go ahead and do something a little bit different today. So, we implore you to sit back, get comfy under the blanket, and hold on, because today we're going to be reading and reacting to some disability related creepypastas, which is something that I've actually been wanting to do for quite a long time. I am a huge fan
Yeah.
of creepypastas. I always talk about them, and Uriel gets annoyed, but that's okay. So we're
Not
gonna
annoyed, man. Don't put
we're
words in
gonna
my mouth.
we're gonna consider this my official creepypasta YouTube page narrator audition. And for those of you that may be unaware, a creepypasta is a horror related legend which has been shared around the internet. The term creepypasta has since become a kind of universal term for any horror content posted on the internet. These entries are often brief, user generated, written by somebody, paranormal stories intended to scare whoever reads them. So, with that being said, I think we're gonna go ahead and jump right in. Sound good, bro?
Yeah.
Okay. So, we have three stories here today. The first one I'm going to be reading comes from the subreddit No Sleep. It was posted 2 years ago by none other than the user Mr. Beef Thighs.
Oh god, that's also me.
That and me too.
I haven't worked them out in a while, but I got those quad genetics and it's kind of annoying, dude. When I sit down, it fills up a chair.
Those thunder thighs. Yeah.
I hate oh man, it's crazy.
All right. So, Uriel and I are going to go ahead and throw it back to high school, maybe even junior high. We're going to do some popcorn reading for you all today for your entertainment. This one's titled, I've Been Blind for Nearly 30 Years. When I was a child, I lived with my parents in a beautiful mountaintop cottage in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It wasn't a big house, but it was a paradise for a small child who loved the outdoors. I spent all my time out in the hills, baking in the summer sun. The mountaintop was a small, tight knit community, and my parents wouldn't bat an eyelash if I would leave the house at first light and not come home until after dark. They knew I was safe, and frankly, were probably glad to have some peace and quiet in the house.
My childhood days. of adventuring came to a sudden end a week after my 11th birthday. That morning, over our breakfast cereal, my dad had told me the circus had come to town. Whee! And overnight had erected a massive red and yellow tent just outside of the baseball field in the valley below. My mouth hung slack jacked. What? My mouth hung slack jacked over my Rice Krispies. Chattanooga was a decently sized town, but outside of the baseball field, the aquarium, and the great outdoors, there wasn't much for a kid to do back then. So when my dad offered to take the family to the circus that weekend as part of my birthday celebration, I couldn't believe it. I made sure the hug I gave to my dad every morning lingered a few seconds longer that day before I ventured out onto the mountaintop forest.
I ran through the forest, legs pumping like pistons. I
Mm,
was so excited. The
that's where he
circus.
gets it, Mr. Beefpies.
Yeah, that's
You're
right.
like Pistons,
Just
brother.
running like pistons for the
Yeah,
circus. Yeah.
yeah.
How lucky was I to have such a good dad? I finally reached my destination, a tall pine that rested on an overlook that jutted over the valley below. I was going to get a glimpse of that circus tent.
I don't remember anything else that day. I still wonder if I ever got a brief glimpse of that tent.
From what I was told, a branch snapped and I fell about 35 feet onto the rock outcrop below, knocking me unconscious. When I didn't come home that night, my parents called the police. Eventually, they found me broken and bloodied and still unconscious. A few days after that, I woke up in the hospital, and a few moments after waking up, I realized I was blind.
So what happened here? Whoa, whoa, whoa. So he was running. Then a branch fell on him? Hold it. Fell about 35 feet onto a rock outcrop. What?
Yeah, it seems like a branch snapped that was under him, and he tripped and fell.
Oh, he fell. He fell 35 feet onto a rock
Yeah,
outcrop.
yep, that'll do it.
I hit my head on that rock outcropping in just the right way to knock loose something in my brain. Oh my God. And just like flickering a switch, I lost my vision. My world that was once filled with green trees, brown dirt, and blue skies was now enveloped in a complete and utter blackness. Not to break the fourth wall again, but isn't that mostly false? Doesn't most blindness just like super like it's just like pitch white, right?
Yeah, I don't know. That's probably something we should have said in the beginning. Obviously, we don't know how accurate these stories are. They are written from, for the most part, a disabled person's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
but we have no real way to know the validity of them and how
Right.
accurate the descriptions or portrayals are in them. We just have to kind of suspend disbelief, so to say.
He got his brain rattled.
But yeah, if anybody that's listening out there does have, these types of disabilities, like in this story, he's describing being blind. And if something's inaccurate or you want to like mention something, feel free to, comment on our Instagram posts, on Facebook, email us at the disability myth, of course. And I'll probably put a poll up where you guys can respond on Spotify as well. The next few years were hard, very hard. But like all things, you get used to it. You adapt, you learn new things, you find new passions, and carry on with life.
I say all of that to tell you I'm 40 now. I've been blind now for most of my life. I've grown and adapted, and after several years, I finally feel like I'm able to be happy with my life. I have a job. I work at a school for the blind. Several friends and I live alone in a house that I've finally been able to buy after years of saving. Things have been going well for me. Really well, actually. After all these years in the dark, I, f- I finally feel like my feet are back up under me. I finally feel at peace with my life and the circumstances I've found myself in. I finally feel like I'm back in control of my life. I'm completely capable. I'm a completely capable adult. Or I felt that way until this week. Dun, dun, dun.
It all started on Monday. I had a shit day at school, a
Oh.
real stinker.
It's like Garfield. I hate Mondays. I had a shit day at school, a real stinker. Sorry. Garfield. On
Killing
the
you.
next line.
Kids were assholes. My boss was an asshole.
Yeah.
The weather sucked. Just an all around bad day. We all have them. As soon as I got home that day, I was going to get into bed and go to sleep just to put this day behind me. And that is what I started to do. I walked in, drank a glass of water, and crawled into bed. But it didn't feel right. Something was off. I laid there for a few minutes when it hit me. My bed was warm when I crawled in, only on one side, as if someone had just gotten out of bed moments before I walked into the room. My mouth went dry, and I laid in silence for several more minutes, listening. I decided I was just imagining things, got another glass of water, and went to sleep.
The next day, after work, I came home and I plopped down on the couch to watch TV. Yes, us blind folk do that sometimes. It makes sense. He's listening, right?
Yeah,
Some shows you really need eyes for, but with modern accessibility features, senses are described for us. It's pretty cool. It's like having a robot read a screenplay for you. Kind of weird to get used to, but it's better than sitting in silence. So I'm sitting there, not really listening to the TV, more zoned out than anything when I notice I'm feeling heat. Nothing too intense, just a low, steady heat is coming from my right side. It took me a minute to realize it wasn't heat coming from the lamp on end table right next to me.
I don't turn on lights in my house, ever. Why would I? I have lamps and light bulbs screwed into their sockets, but I never use them. Friends use them when they come over, but that's about it. I haven't had anyone over at my house for probably a month at that point, and I definitely would have noticed the heat from this lamp before now if it had been on that long. I sit in this spot next to it nearly every day.
I turned off the lamp and put it behind me. I didn't have an explanation for it, but why worry myself, right?
Full disclosure, besides being blind, I'm also an idiot.
I listened to another episode of NCIS, microwaved some dinner, and decided to head off to bed. I left the kitchen, took 4 steps down the hall as usual, turned, walked through the bedroom door, and bam, damn near broke my nose on the bedroom door. This is when I got a little bit freaked out. I never close my doors. I'm fucking blind and I live alone. I don't need the hassle of feeling for a doorknob every time. I enter or leave a room. Someone had been in my house. Oh, balls.
That's definitely making the final cut. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was scared shitless. I haven't been that scared since the day I woke up in that hospital in Chattanooga, knowing my entire life had just been changed. I pulled my cell phone out of my pocket to call 911, but my hands were shaking from the adrenaline and I dropped it. I heard the phone bounce off the carpet and hit the baseboards of the wall, so I dropped it to my hands and knees and started feeling around for it. 5 seconds later, I still hadn't found my phone. Had it bounced further away? I swear I heard it hit the baseboards right at my feet. I slowly expanded my search, crawling my way down the hallway, arms splayed out in front of me, trying to scour as much of the carpeted floor as I could. Nothing.
Tears were beginning to well up in my eyes. Lame, I know, but like I said, I was having a bad week, and I was really scared. I sat for a moment, calmed myself, evened my breathing, and restarted my search. I only had a few square feet of space left to search, just the space in front of the laundry room door and the guest bedroom door. It was in a long hallway. I army crawled down the hall, scraping my arms across the carpet when the very tip of my one of my fingers brushed up against a solid object in the middle of the carpet. I finally I army crawled a few inches more, let my hand fall where I had felt something solid. There was nothing there. Confused, I crawled a few more inches and tried again. Nothing. I crawled a few more inches and reached my hands out again. My right hand fell on something, too big to be a phone. I gently rubbed my hand across its surface. It felt cold and dry, almost fleshy. I realized what it was when it moved out from under my hand. I just grabbed someone's foot. Ugh, stinky.
Yeah, you'd think it would smell. Yeah. I screamed and threw myself backwards, struggling to regain my feet. My legs had turned into jelly. I collapsed onto the ground and listened. Legs pulled up to my chest, ready to kick out at any noise within striking distance. I'm not sure how long I was on the ground. It felt like forever. After a while, I slowly got back up to my feet. I stood and listened to the air. I couldn't hear anything but the wind blowing through the trees in the backyard and the hum of my air conditioner, but I could feel someone staring at me. I knew that less than 15 feet from me, someone was standing in the doorway of my guest room, barefoot and holding my phone. My mind conjured a head of wild hair, torn clothes, and dirty hands that wrapped around the handle of a butcher knife.
Slowly, I backed away, feeling along the wall with my hand, searching for my bedroom door so I could place myself within my house and plan my escape. The air tasted electric, and the silent house held an enormous tension that felt ready to explode. Any moment, footsteps would launch themselves towards me from the hallway, and I would feel a knife plunge deep into my chest or neck, or useless fucking eyes. My breathing was getting heavy again. Was that my breathing? My mind was racing for the possible outcomes, and ears were straining to pick up anything in the silence.
Finally, my hand brushed against the door frame of my bedroom. My hand wrapped around the doorknob to steady myself, and I used the next quarter second to formulate a plan in my head. Turn around 180 degrees, take 4 steps, turn left, take 5 steps. Door should be there. Unlock door, leave house. Stand in the middle of the street and scream my head off until a neighbor or a passerby stops to help me. Solid plan.
Just as I was about to turn around to put my plan into action, I felt the doorknob to my door rotate under my hand and pull itself away from me. Opening the door, I felt one hot, smelly breath on my face and I bolted. I turned 180 degrees, take 4 steps, turn left, take 5 steps. Bam, I ran to the kitchen island. I was panicking. My strides were longer when I ran. Too bad I had never sprinted around my house before to learn what this would be like. Uh-oh. I reached out onto the island and grabbed my knife block and pulled out the first knife I could find. I put my back to the kitchen counter and swung the knife wildly in front of me. I shuffled my way around the kitchen island, feeling my way towards the door. When I felt a finger poke me in the forehead, I muffled laughter as I slashed the air wildly around me, inching closer and closer to the door.
I found the doorknob and pulled the door. It was locked. Fuck, I had forgotten about that. It wasn't a problem, but it delayed my exit by another 2 seconds, just long enough to hear a knife slide out of the knife block on the kitchen island. I exploded out of the house and ran into the street screaming. I can't remember if I was screaming for help or if I was just plain screaming, but it wasn't even a minute before a woman's voice called out to me.
Sweetie, it's okay. Drop the knife. It's okay. I can help you. The woman sounded like she had just smoked about 3 packs of marble. I can never pronounce that. I don't know.
Marlboros. I really thought
Mar.
you were gonna like do a voice for that. Like, sweetie, it's okay.
Oh
Drop
no.
the knife.
And
Like,
um.
what do like older women who smoke sound like?
Oh God.
You got that like good, deep, gravelly voice.
Oh God. I don't even know if I could. Um. Sweetie, it's okay. Drop the knife. It's okay. I can help you. The woman sounded like she had just smoked 3 packs of camels. Her throat was filled with gravel. It's okay. Shh. She cooed.
Okay. I was not expecting you to read the narration part in the voice, dude. I lowered the knife and listened to the woman as she approached.
I've been blind for nearly 30 years. I know what things sound like. I can tell what kind of cars are on the road by the sound of their tires. I can pick out the isolate specific sound in a loud room. I know what it sounds like when people walk with shoes or sandals or or boots or bare feet. This woman walking towards me had bare feet. I started screaming again, slashing the knife wildly in the direction and heard the woman scamper off back towards my house.
In the end, one of my neighbors called the police. Not about my situation, but because there was a total psycho screaming and waving a knife wildly in the street outside her house. I don't blame her. Either way, it got the police here.
They found two people in my house. They had been living in the guest room. I probably would have found them in there if I went in there. The police said they had probably been in there for the past 2 weeks. Oh God. A couple of meth heads looking for a place to squat and figured they would just live in a house of a blind guy. And as long as they were quiet, they wouldn't have any issues. I guess they just figured I would think my house was haunted or something. It makes me sick knowing these people were in there for so long, watching me from a dark corners and laying in my bed. I'd probably walked right past them a few times or cooked myself dinner while they sat on the couch and watched me.
Before I hit the post button on this, there is one more thing that I'm still a bit worried about. I'm typing all of this out through a dictation app. You know, those apps where you just talk and your computer will type it out for you. They're essential for us blind folk. Anyway, I'm sitting here in my room talking this thing out, and I swear to God, in the breaks when I stop to think, those little pockets of time where my house returns to that deathly silence of a few nights ago, I swear I can hear someone breathing in the room with me. I think the police might have missed one. I still don't think I'm alone in this house. You're not. So that's the story. I really liked
Oh,
how
I
it
get it
ends.
because he's like
Yeah,
talking it out loud. He's talking out loud, and then someone's like, "Oh, you're not."
right. And that's what picked up the speech to text picked that up.
It reminds
Yeah.
me of the creative essay I wrote. They got a 99 out of 100 because the teacher
Yeah.
didn't like the murder part.
Yeah, the one about the squatter.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
dude, and yeah, the dude, yeah, the squatter in the house. How'd they get in there? It's funny.
I know that's wild. That's what I liked about I specifically like this subreddit, No Sleep, because you can't quite tell if it's real or if it's just a creepypasta, like a fictitious legend.
Mm.
And the way people replied in the comments, they were quite concerned.
When it comes to creepy pastas, I understand that a majority of the people that consume these tend to be much younger,
Yeah. I
right?
think
So I don't
my peak like creepypasta reading phase, I was probably, 15, 16 in high school.
totally.
Yeah, and so what I especially enjoyed was the reading the comments section on this. The first comment that pops up, someone said, OP, if this reaches you somehow, run. Go to a hotel and then try to see if you can move to an assisted living facility or some kind of shared apartment with the help of your friends. It's not safe. This happened to somebody I know, but thankfully, in her case, it was just a fat cat breaking in, aka Garfield, and quietly stealing food from her plate while she ate, making her think she was going insane. I really hope you're okay. So someone wrote that, and then someone else replied
I mean, that's
saying,
kind of
"Why?"
terrifying, dude. Like living in assistance or living
Yeah,
assisting home could be like a nightmare for some disabled people. So that in itself is a horror story.
yeah. That, and so someone replied saying, "Why assume the only way to fix this is by robbing OP of their independence?" And so I thought that was like kind of an interesting point
Oh yeah, yeah.
because, like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are blind that live independently on their own.
Oh, for
And
sure. Yeah.
I think for someone to just jump in and say, "Oh, you should go live with like somebody or go into assisted living," it seems a little ignorant. So
Oh, we
no,
know a couple.
yeah, I appreciated, that little comment that jumped in there defending them. So
In this case, this dude's in his house and everything is meticulously
yeah,
organized.
well, I like the detail of it too. Like that's what makes these stories so good is the detail. The guy was talking about how, this is my plan. My door is like X amount of feet away from me. I need to take X amount of steps left, X amount of steps right. Like it's all so methodical and
It's
very
those
well
ghetto
detailed.
steps, you know. It's like
Those
I
ghetto steps.
well, I don't know how tall OP is, you know, original poster. That's what
Yeah,
OP stands for.
yeah.
Because some people like my foot is 10.5 inches, so that's not quite a foot, you know, but
Mhm.
it's a rough guesstimate.
Yeah.
You got
And
8 feet, right? 8 feet.
my feet are like actually smaller than the size I wear of shoe, just because my ankles are not flexible at all. And if you bend them in the wrong direction, they'll literally break. So uh I'm probably more like a size 6. But yeah, I really like the details in that one, you know, even so to go so far as to say that, he missed they miscalculated their steps because they were running and they hadn't tried running in their house before because like why would you? All right, you ready for story number 2?
No,
No.
this one might be scary.
Yeah, this one's a little bit more mature. This story was posted on the creepypasta subreddit. It's titled If You Love Me, and it is a little bit more mature, maybe a little NSFW in nature, so just a little bit of a trigger warning. All right. Julie and I had been married for 10 years. We had 2 kids, one boy and one girl. Our anniversary was fast approaching, and I hadn't planned anything. Truth be told, I hadn't planned anything significant for the last 3 years. I had fallen in that funk. So I decided to book a trip to Chicago over the weekend. She had never been, and when I told her, she was elated. It was only going to be a weekend trip, but she was building an itinerary as if we were going to be there for a year. I let her plan the whole trip. Whatever she wanted to do, we did it. I had no input. I felt like she had never loved me more than at that moment.
When we got home from the airport, I fumbled for the keys. Not only did I have problems getting the keys out of my pockets, but I struggled to insert it into the keyhole. Julie grabbed the keys from me and opened the front door.
Damn, Dan, laughing as she walked into the house.
I was having similar issues in all areas of my life. Simple tasks became extremely difficult. I couldn't keep my balance and was prone to accidents. My legs and arms felt useless, dead, weak, beyond use, becoming a vestigial. It progressed over the following year, so much that I had finally forced myself to go to the doctor. ALS. Ooh, maybe you could,
I'll
maybe
take a
you should read
stab.
that part. Yeah.
I'll take a stab. Forgive me if I say this wrong. If anybody out
Ooh,
there with ALS is listening, um, I'm amyotrophic lateral sclerosis
there we go.
was the
Was the
diagnosis.
diagnosis, or better known as Lou Gehrig's disease. The story of my life had instantly been reduced, abridged to only a few more chapters.
How long? Julie asked the doctor,
2 to 5 years. Some have been known to live 10 more years. Ooh.
as if 10 was really that much better. Not 10 good years, but 10 worsening years. 10 years of becoming immobile and lifeless. 10 slow years of dying.
The car ride home was quiet. Julie was crying to herself, driving but not paying attention to the road. She was thinking about a life without me. I was thinking about how best to die. A part of me considered suicide, but I wasn't quite ready to be away from my children. I had to at least put things in order for them. I also wanted to create lasting memories of who I was. That was my fault. That was all my faults. I was at least a good father. Oh, with all my faults, gosh, dude. My dyslexia is kicking in. It's wild, bro. With all my faults, I was at least a good father. Yeah, that's good.
Time passed. A year and a half later, and I couldn't walk, confined to a wheelchair. A nurse came to visit me every week to check my vitals and bring me my medication. She taught Julie how to change out the colostomy bag and some other simple tasks when the nurse wasn't available.
Julie's demeanor began to change. She went from loving and patient to irritated and depressed. With each passing stage of my illness, she became ever more hateful. One night we were watching television together, me slumped in my wheelchair, and all the way across the room in her favorite recliner. She never would wheel me close to her, but kept me as far away as possible. Her cell phone rang. Hey Randy, what's up? Okay, I can't talk. I'm here with old dead weight. I can't wait either. Who was that? I asked.
None of your business, but if you must know, someone from work. We might hang out Saturday night, cutting her eyes towards me to see my reaction.
With Randy, a guy.
Yep, it's no big deal. We're just friends.
That friendship blossomed into something deeper. Julie was rarely home, spending all her time down at the alley bar and grill. She would come home drunk, existing in a different world than mine. She all but ignored me except when factors of my disease became too visible to ignore. Changing the colostomy bag was of particular agitation for her.
I hate changing your shit bag. If you really loved me, you would just go ahead and die,
We
slurring the last half of the sentence. I would usually ignore it and chalk it up to the alcohol. She didn't really mean it. She's just frustrated and drunk.
Another year passed and I couldn't move at all, confined to my hospital bed, hooked up to a system of medical machinery, clicking out the last moments of my life. Julie had moved the kids to her parents' house along with a good deal of the furniture. I never felt so alone. The only happiness I had at the time was my kids. I thought they would eventually tire of me like Julie, but they were always willing to spend time with me. I only needed a few minutes a day. I didn't want them to waste their lives sitting at a dying man's rented gravesite.
Julie always put a different face on in front of the nurse. She wasn't physically abusive, but she was a mind grinding, ego shattering bitch. She knew what to say to aggravate me. She always did. But now she turned on her craft to its highest wave of severity, crushing my soul with her relentless pounding vitriol. Her favorite line was always a variation of, if you love me, then such and such. Insert hateful clause. Finally, though, it did get physical.
You started bringing Randy home. Oh. They always came through the front door and went straight upstairs. I could hear them upstairs doing what we used to do as a married couple. I could tell that she truly loved Randy, and she was so ready to be with him and done with me. At this point, I could hardly speak. But one night, I had enough. This man in my house that I paid for, with my wife acting as if I wasn't here, and like he had sacrificed his own time and effort for everything he was now enjoying. I started moaning and causing a racket, straining to be a nuisance, even though it took an unimaginable amount of willpower just to do that. I heard the upstairs door slam down and a stampede of steps down the stairs. Shut the fuck up. What's wrong with you?
I just moaned even more, and at one point, I accidentally squealed. That pissed her off for some reason, so I increased the squealing.
Maybe he's in pain, Julie.
No, he's a fucking baby. She went over to the couch and grabbed a throw pillow and smashed it in my face. She wasn't letting up. I was struggling to breathe, trapped in my own corpse, unable to defend myself. Finally, I felt a rush of fresh air as the pillow was thrown off my face. Randy had intervened.
What are you doing? Are you a psycho? You're trying to kill the man.
No, of course not. I was going to let up. I just lost my temper. Randy looked over at me, and I could see that he had lost something for her. She looked entirely different now. She wasn't the fun loving brunette he had fallen in love with at the bar. For the first time, I could see that Randy was sympathetic. I still hated him, but I knew it was probably over between him and her. Mission accomplished. The power of squealing.
I wept that night, my emotions welling up, but not pity. Full on fucking anger. My face was wet with tears, tears that my pathetic, no good, limp ass arms couldn't wipe away. The more I thought about the trivial task of wiping away the tears and how I was unable to do that, the angrier I got. I prayed to God, but not the type of prayer you hear in church. I begged God to perform a miracle. I prayed that Julie would die and watch me walk away healthy and with a beautiful blonde by my side. I prayed that our kids would hate her forever and spit on her damn face. I prayed for the worst possible traumas and calamities to befall her. But in the end, all was silent. The adulterous, no good fucking couple had turned out the lights. They didn't even leave the television on for me. I laid there in the dark, listening to the wind blow outside. Even my slight forgiveness of Randy had subsided.
And then my anger turned towards God. How could he do this? He couldn't even give me a peaceful death. He couldn't give me a loving wife until the very end, until my very last breath. I wouldn't have begrudged her to move on the very next day after they had shoveled the final piece of dust onto my coffin. I wondered how God could be so cruel as to rip me from my children. Why such a slow, agonizing death? And so, out of spite, not really expecting anything to happen, I prayed to Satan. I asked him if he healed me. I would do whatever he asked. Just give me back my kids. Give me back my life.
The wind outside picked up. The moon seemed to dim its light. I heard the swing set swaying violently, the chains clanging against the bars. At the foot of the bed, I saw a dark arm fumble for the footboard, long fingers grasping, and then the other arm. A stench filled the room, and everything else but the figure before me fell out of focus. The head emerged, the thinning hair, sunken in face, and exposed teeth. I noticed there were no lips, and where his nose should have been, there's only a flap of skin. He crawled up onto my body, gray and oily, taut to the bone, every little muscle in his body twitching rapidly. He crawled all the way up to me and put his mouth into my mouth. Ooh.
I fell out of my body and into another dimension. In front of me, I could see a field with trees, flowers, budding and growing in rapid succession. The most beautiful blue skies, my kids bouncing around the playground, and me watching on a park bench. I felt my body falling again. There was Julie lying in bed. From the other side of the bed, I watched a figure from behind walk up and strangle Julie. The figure looked back at me, and I was staring at my own face. I fell again, and there, chained in a dark room, was myself, with no chance of escape, locked away for eternity.
I understood the offer in its simple but terrifying details. I could have my kids and my life back if I killed Julie, but at a price. I would lose my soul. I opened my eyes, and the dark figure was sitting on top of my chest, staring at me with exquisite white eyes. And for the first time in a long time, I uttered a coherent word. Yes, the deal was made, and the figure slowly disappeared. I instantly felt my legs and my arms, my gut of it, every inch of my body was oscillating with vibrant sensation. When everything is dead, and then suddenly alive, I feel it all. Immaculate nerves, firing, pulsating, gyrating biological function. The beauty of it was overwhelming. But then my thought was clouded with hate.
I slowly walked upstairs. I was worried about Randy. He was bigger than me. He would have no problem beating me off of her. But I had made a deal, and I was determined to see the fear and bewilderment in her eyes when I was on top of her. I didn't have to worry about Randy. Randy was lying on his back, with his eyes wide open. and his intestines torn from his gut and strewn across the bed. I saw a pair of eyes watching me from the closet. I climbed on top of Julie, her eyes wide open, and there it was, the fear I so relished. It was astonishingly beautiful, yet fearful at the same time. I let go. I'm not a killer. I heard a low growl from the closet.
If you love me, but I don't.
Of course, I got away. I was missing, assumed dead. How can a paralyzed man kill his wife and lover? It was all a lie. A fugitive can't spend any time with his kids. The dark charlatan tricked me. My time is limited. Now I wonder if it was worth it. I don't enjoy myself. I can't enjoy my time. I don't enjoy the freedom of moving about without having to depend on anyone else because I'm a prisoner of anonymity. All I ever think about is dying. Death is constantly on my mind. Well, not death, but what happens after death. Sometimes I lie in bed, unable to move, as if someone is sitting on top of me. I hear the clicking of the machines, counting down the days of my accursed life. I took the apple the serpent offered, and now I'm waiting to pay the price.
Oh, there's no comments. Sad.
Yeah, that one I felt like was pretty mid, not gonna lie. It
Oh,
was,
now that we've read it out loud.
yeah, I I liked it. It was fine, but it wasn't my favorite. I felt sympathy for the main character, when he was talking about feeling useless, the whole idea of burden complex, having your wife change your colostomy bag and help take care of you. Like, it's a lot. It doesn't excuse adultery, but no, it was interesting.
Yeah, give it a 6 out of 12.
6 out of 12.
Yeah.
Oh, so we should be rating them now, huh? Okay. Are we rating things out of 12 instead of 10? Why 12?
I don't know. I just felt 12 felt appropriate.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, I'll give this one a 7 out of 12. The one that we read
Just
first.
1 point more than mine.
Yeah. The one that we read first, I've been blind for nearly 30 years. I'll give that a 9 out of 12. All right. Now,
I really hate being disabled right now. Submitted 7 years ago by deleted. Point, point, point.
yeah, I don't know. I read this pretty thoroughly. This one I did not skim through. And this was by far my favorite. Like right away before we even go through it, I'm telling you, this one is like an 11 out of 12 for me. This one I really enjoyed.
Well, if you really enjoyed it, why are you pussyfooting around, man? 12 out of 12, right?
I don't know. Like it wasn't perfect.
Oh, when is anything ever perfect,
That's true.
right? So 12 out of 12.
Sure, screw it. 12 out of 12.
There you
Anyways,
go. Yeah.
I really hate being disabled right now. This was posted, as Uriel said, 7 years ago by someone that was deleted off of Reddit. I'll start by saying I'm a wheelchair user. I have been ever since a freak accident at the age of 7 caused my spinal cord injury. I can't do shit without my chair, really. It functions as my legs. Duh. Anyways, something really weird has been happening. It started about 2 weeks ago, or I started noticing it about 2 weeks ago. My chair's kind of been moving. Well, not kinda. It has. Despite being a quadriplegic, I'm totally independent. Aside from grocery shopping, I can and do everything on my own. I'm pretty lucky and very grateful for that, especially because I wasn't always so independent. Anyways, my being independent means that I can get in and out of bed myself. To do this, I parked my chair parallel to my bed with my feet facing the head of the bed just because that's what works for me. And basically, I just kind of pull slash push slash toss myself on into bed. So once I'm fully in bed, my chair sits openly facing me. Anyways, I've been doing my bed transfers like this for years. Nothing's ever gone wrong until recently.
It started out pretty subtly. My chair moving 2 weeks ago ish. When I woke up, I was getting out of bed. I noticed that it was a bit further south, towards the end of my bed, than I would have liked it. I usually park pretty close to the top of my bed when transferring because, again, that's what works for me. When I park closer to the top, I don't have to do as much work getting settled correctly once I'm in. It also makes getting out of bed much easier because I don't have to pull myself to the bottom of the bed or tossing my legs over the edge and just kind of shimmying out anyway. Like I said, 2 weeks ago, my chair was further away than I'd like it to be. At the time, it wasn't a big deal. I'm a night owl, and sometimes I'll stay up until I'm nodding off before I finally decide to call it a night or morning, really, and go to bed. When I do this, I can often be off of my parking and too tired to do anything about it. Just let it be until the morning when I actually give a damn. That morning, I did the little bit of extra work to get out of bed and went out about my day.
The next morning, I noticed the same thing. My chair was a bit farther away from the top of the bed than I like it to be. Whatever. I got a little irritated with myself while I was doing the extra work getting out of bed, but I still went about my day as usual. The morning after that was the same thing, and the morning after that. I think you get the picture. At around the sixth day, I started to really get irritated. Here's something else to know about me. I'm obsessive. It manifests in different ways, but one of the ways is in the form of perfectionism. That being said, I'm human. I'm incapable of being perfect, but I'll be damned if I don't try. My being a perfectionist is reflected in parking my chair before bed. It has to be perfectly parallel to my bed, right up against the frame. Man, have I fucked up so many bed skirts because of this. And at least kind of where I need to be in relation to the top of the bed. Also, like I said, parking correctly just eliminates a lot of unnecessary stress on my behalf. So when this shit kept happening, when my chair kept being parked incorrectly, I got annoyed. I also got really confused. I know myself, and I know that I wouldn't keep making the same mistake over and over like that, especially a mistake that ultimately makes my life more difficult than it has to be.
At first, I thought that my chair was just sliding away while I slept, but then I realized how stupid that was. When I'm out, I use a manual chair, but when I'm home, I use my power chair. It's less stress on my shoulders in the long run that way. My power chair is 300 pounds. That's the frame alone, and I'm not even including the 50-pound batteries. So the possibility of it just sliding away on my carpet floor, no less, is completely absurd. It's just too big for that, and it's an automatic brake to prevent things like that from happening. Anyway, then I thought, well, maybe my mom or my brother is fucking with me. The problem with that is my family, like anyone else who has close relatives in a wheelchair, knows not to touch my chair under any circumstances. I'm pretty sure it's a law in the world of families with a member that has a physical disability that you never touch their assistive equipment without their explicit permission. Still, I asked them about it just to be sure. Of course, they said no. I believe them. They wouldn't do that to me.
Then I honestly started to think that I was losing my mind, or that somebody in my house was sleepwalking, or that the universe was shifting while I slept and throwing things off position. Trust me, I know how that sounds. You know how you get when you're confused and reaching for any sort of explanation for something weird happening. I came to the conclusion that I wasn't losing my mind, that I would have heard my mom or brother opening my door and moving my chair. It makes a clicking noise when you start to move it and stop moving it. The sound of the automatic brake disengaging and engaging. And that the last possibility was just fucking stupid. Anyways, I shook it off because what else could I really do?
The sixth night, I meticulously parked my chair. I even got back into it from bed immediately after to get into bed to check and make sure that it was parked correctly. It was. This morning, however, it was off, even more than the past nights. Now it's safe to say that this was the point when I got creeped out. At this point, I started to feel like something was wrong. Remember how I said my obsessive manifests in a different way? Well, aside from perfectionism, I also manifest it in overthinking and paranoia as the end result of that overthinking. When I started to think that there was someone else living in my in the crevice of my house that got their rocks off by screwing with me. So then I told my mom and my brother that my chair problem was getting out of hand and trying to put my mind at ease after clearly seeing how distraught I was, which is totally out of character for me. I'm an extremely chill and level-headed person, usually. They helped me look through the entire house. We didn't find any horror movie-esque creep lurking in our attic or office closet. Sidebar. We did find $10 behind my dresser, yes. We even checked there. Anyways, we didn't find anything out of the ordinary.
You'd think I'd be relieved, right? Well, I wasn't. Especially because over the next few days, my chair got farther and farther away while I was sleeping. It got to the point where I had to pull myself to the edge of the bed and my torso kind of hanging off the bottom of it, stretch enough to reach my steering knob to drive the chair close enough to finally get out of bed. That was a couple of days ago. This morning, I couldn't reach my chair at all. I had a call from my mom to get it for me. Thank God she was home. This is embarrassing, but I actually cried before I called for her. I think it was a combination of being confused, scared, and feeling helpless that did me in. When she came in to help me and saw my chair, she was just as confused as I was. She even called my brother in and interrogated him about moving it, even though we both knew it wasn't him. Then we all just kind of stared at each other in silence for a bit. I'm pretty sure they're as freaked out as I am about this now, which I hate. I hate that I dragged them into this. I even caught my mom smudging the house earlier today. My great grandmother is Native American. It only freaked me out more. It also gave me hope that it'll stop whatever's going on.
I don't know what to do. I'm posting here because I'm hoping that someone can help me. I've lurked on no sleep for a long time, and I always see how nice y'all are when someone's going through weird things and how willing y'all are to try and help. In the meantime, I'm sleeping with my door open tonight. I'm going to embarrass myself again, but I actually just started crying. That's the second time today. I need to get a grip. While trying this, just thinking about going to sleep really freaks me out. I don't know. It's just that only reason you'd move someone's wheelchair when they rely on it, like I do, is to immobilize them, to strand them, and keep them where they are.
So yeah, I thought that was a really good story, and it was one of those where I couldn't really quite tell if it was just made up or real. And it's another one with like a decent sized comment section. People were telling the original poster that they should set up a video and audio recorder to see what happens. And the original poster replied saying that they would, and that's all you hear from them. And then they just kind of the trail of evidence leaves. That's it.
Hmm.
So I don't know. This one really kind of spooked me because it felt like it could be real, and the way it was written felt like it was real to me. Um, just the details talking about their power chair, like it was 300 pounds, and that the batteries weighed 50 pounds. Like
That's pretty. It's close to yours, huh?
that's a
Not too far off.
very specific detail. You
Right.
know, like the chairs do weigh over 300 pounds if they're power chairs usually, based on the model and the hydraulics that are in it.
Well, that's the beauty of writing. I think the one part that probably that some people could relate to is the his routine to get in and out of the bed, and also the shoulder comment where wheelchair users just abuse their arms and their shoulders because they have to like lift their shoulders a bit
Yeah,
depending on how their wheelchairs aligned, I guess, or how their height and everything. Because
yeah,
wheelchairs aren't perfect. The one issue with wheelchairs is that they're kind of designed for various body sizes, but not your exact body size. Like if I'm 5'10", they're probably going to give me a wheelchair that best suits someone that's around 5'10", but it's not going to be perfect.
yeah. Well,
Unless I'm wrong. Unless I'm wrong.
nowadays they, at least in my case, they go to pretty extensive measures to like actually measure you. Um,
Okay, that's good. See, there you go. Stand
like
corrected.
they get a good fit for like your hips and
Yeah, good.
yeah, the dumpy and all that. So
The dumpy. Yeah, yeah. Um, automatic brakes. I'm assuming some of them come with it.
again, that's just another really kind of niche detail that the
Right.
author mentions that most people wouldn't know about unless A, you
Mm.
had the power chair or you know somebody with
Well,
the power chair.
but yeah, I was about to say, or chances are this author, this writer, knows someone that's in a power chair or that is disabled
Right.
because they brought up that weird kind of hidden rule that you don't really touch disabled people's shit unless you have
Yeah.
their permission, right?
The other thing that makes me think this is legit, if you go into the comments and scroll down a little bit, um, someone was like kind of being a smartass, in my opinion. And they commented, "You mean you're a paraplegic, not a quadriplegic, right? I have a disability too, and I'm always terrified of some kind of situation happening where I need to run away and can't. Killers, monsters, rabid dogs, a group of hyper 4 year olds, the usual scary shit." Anyways, so they were like thinking that he was more of a paraplegic than a quad. And so the original poster replied, "No, I'm a quad. Quads have varying levels of ability. A lot of us have pretty good use of
Yes.
our arms. Many of us function a lot
Mm-hmm.
like paras, so a lot of us use manual wheelchairs as well. Hell, I've even seen quads load their chairs into their cars, which is facts. I have too.
Right.
Being a quad just means that all of your limbs are affected by your injury instead of just your legs or arms. For some quads, that means totally losing the use of your arms. But for others, like me, it just means having your range of motion and dexterity is affected." So they really went into detail there and kind of went on a little hill arguing about quads and like the differences.
Yeah. I can look at that. Breaking myths, even though we
Oh
didn't
yeah.
have a myth quite planned out.
Yeah, no, that was fun. I had a good time reading all those. What would you rate that one?
10 out of 12. I liked it.
It was good, right? Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Well,
I related to a
oh,
lot of it, so
I don't want to be an asshole. No, we'll do 12. We'll do 12 out of 12. Why
yeah,
not?
the pity
Right.
12.
Because, yeah, well, it was a fun read. It's a little spooky.
Hmm.
Um, Gosh. I think the reason why I'm rating it higher is because there isn't really an attempt to make it creepy pasta bait.
Hmm.
Like the last one we read was kind of like If You Love Me, that was creepy pasta baited.
Yeah, important to
Oh,
note was
yeah.
the last one we read, the about being in the wheelchair in a quad. That was on No Sleep. It wasn't on the subreddit creepypasta. It was on No Sleep.
Hmm.
So it's not intended to be a creepypasta. It's just like a scary story that someone posted. It could be
Hmm.
real, it might not be real. But the way it's written, I definitely get the feeling that it was real. Or a lot of it
Because just
was real.
the amount of details, or it could be because I don't want to say it's false. It could
Mhm.
be like the story could be made up, but the author themselves could be like a legit quadriplegic,
Yeah,
and they just wanted to write a spooky story.
yeah. I think my main problem with this being real is if say there is some type of entity or a being that's messing with the dude, moving their chair for them in the middle of the night while they're sleeping, that would have to be one bulked out entity. Like these chairs, like you said, they're heavy as shit, you know? Like my chair
Uh,
is, I think, 400 pounds, and
yeah,
Uriel
well,
can like strain himself moving it.
so the only reason why I can kind of inch it forward when the brakes are on is because we're on hardwood floor, and your
Hmm.
tires are kind of worn out.
Yeah,
So I have to do this like back and forth motion while pushing, and I can kind
yeah,
of inch it forward. But even then, that's a lot of. This is on carpet too, so there's no way. If the
yeah.
brakes are on, like I'm talking about hardwood floor where there's less traction
Hmm.
on the carpet, impossible. Just for the viewers out there in a power chair with the brakes
Yeah.
on, you could probably do it if you were a strong man or some shit, but just like me, the average dude with about average strength, right? I don't really work out too much.
Hmm.
That I wouldn't say impossible, but to move it to the amount or the distance that he was describing, it'd be so loud. There'd be no way.
Well, the other thing we're failing to like account for is the assuming there is a ghost or a being that they're intelligent enough to just drive the chair with the joystick.
But
Like
then that would
the
make noise too. That would turn on the like dee doop, all the noises.
I mean, you don't know, maybe they're a deep sleeper. I'm just like trying to play devil's advocate a bit here.
Well, if he's aware that these are happening and the chair is moving during the night, I feel that would have the opposite effect, and he'd be a light sleeper
Yeah.
because he's aware that his chair moves. So I feel like any sound would just freak him the fuck out and just wake him
Hmm.
up, right?
Yeah.
See, now we're just speculating. That's kind of the
Well, I mean, that's the point of like creepypastas and creepy stories like this is to
yeah.
just get
It's for the
people speculating.
speculators, the people that like to make crazy, whacked out theories.
Yeah. It all hinges on the belief or the assumption, that you
Yes.
believe in, paranormal stuff like that.
Hmm.
All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and end it on that note. If you like the stories we had to share today, please leave us a rating, write a nice little review if you're up to it, and be sure to share with your friends and family. If you're not already, be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at The Disability Myth, all one word. If you have any spooky, scary stories you would like to share with us, again, I'll be putting out a poll probably on Spotify. And yeah, you can always feel free to message us on Instagram, on Facebook, or just email us at The Disability Myth. Or our email is at thedisabilitymyth@gmail.com, all one word. So, with that being said, peace and love, stay spooky, and may the force be with you.
Yeah.